Pertemuan 3. I/O dan bus bagian yang kedua. Interkoneksi antar bagian komputer. Interconnection between different computer parts. Mengapa antar bagian komputer perlu saling terkoneksi? Why do different parts of the computer need to be interconnected? Alasan utama adalah ini, agar data dapat diproses. Karena kalau ada satu device yang berdiri sendiri, device-nya itu punya data, ya akhirnya datanya nggak bisa diproses, nggak bisa lari kemana-mana. If there is one device that doesn't have any connection with other parts of the computer, then that device's data cannot be processed, cannot go to anywhere else. It will be isolated, terisolasi, dan ya sudah, berdiri sendiri. Interkoneksi yang mungkin terjadi antar bagian utama komputer. These are some examples of the computer devices interconnection. Memory to CPU. Ini proses baca instruksi atau data. Jadi datanya dari memori dibaca oleh CPU. In the first example here, the data comes from the memory and then it is read by the CPU. This is reading process of the instruction or the program instruction or the data. Yang kedua, kebalikannya. Dari CPU, sumber datanya, dia mengirim datanya ke memori. Ini adalah proses menulis data. Second one here is when the CPU send the data to the memory. In this case, it is the process of data writing. Yang ketiga, dari CPU ke I/O, proses kirim data ke I/O. The third one, the data comes from the CPU to the I/O. This one is the process of sending data to the I/O. Yang keempat, dari I/O ke CPU, proses baca data dari I/O device ke CPU. Fourth here, data comes from the I/O and go to the CPU. In this case, it is a process of reading data from the I/O device. Yang kelima, dari I/O ke memori. Ini transfer data dari I/O ke memori via DMA yang saya jelaskan minggu kemarin. The fifth one is when the data comes from the I/O and it goes to the memory. In this case, it is data transfer from I/O to the memory using the MA mechanism that I explained last week. Yang terakhir, dari memori ke I/O. Ini transfer data dari memori ke I/O lewat DMA lagi. Last one here, it is a data transfer from memory to I/O using the same DMA mechanism. Ini gambar model yang bagian blok pertama memori, blok kedua I/O modul, blok ketiga CPU. Kalau yang dari kiri ini mengarah ke kotaknya, masuk ke kotaknya, ini adalah proses receive. Kalau yang ke kanan keluar, ini adalah data yang dikirim, yang sending. Here there are three boxes, memory box, and then I/O module box, and then the CPU module. On the left hand side, it is when there are arrows coming into the boxes here. It symbolizes the receiving process. Basically, these three boxes receive some kind of data coming from some other parts. So that's why the arrow here points to the boxes. And then for the right hand side, where the arrow pointed out from the box, it is the sending process. Jadi contohnya di memori di sini. Ini dia receive signal untuk read, signal untuk write. Setelah itu dia receive juga address dia, memori address mana yang sedang diaktifasi untuk dibaca atau untuk ditulisi. Kemudian kalau untuk ditulisi, dia akan terima juga data di sini. So for this one, for the memory block, for the left hand side here, memory receives either read instruction or write instruction. Both activate either reading process instruction or writing process instruction. And then at the same time, the memory needs the address data to know which address it should activate, either to be read or to be written. And then if it is a write process, then it needs the data itself to be written inside the memory address. Untuk yang sebelah kanan data ini proses pembacaan, jadi ini read pembacaan, maka address diaktifasi, read aktivasi, maka dia akan menghasilkan data yang dilempar nanti bisa ke CPU atau ke modul I/O. For the right hand side, where it happens when the memory receives read instruction here. When it receives read, it knows that it needs to send out a data here based on the address, which address it needs to read by itself, and then send it to either CPU or module I/O module. This one is memory. Ini memory. Ya, kemudian yang kedua, I/O module mirip, ada read, ada write, kemudian ada address, kemudian ada untuk internal datanya sendiri atau untuk eksternal data. Terus outputnya bisa internal data, datanya dia sendiri, atau eksternal data dari pembacaannya dia. Terus kemudian signal interrupt, itu yang bisa dihasilkan oleh I/O module. For I/O module, it is similar for the left hand side. It has the read and write instruction, and then address, it is similar here. And then it has the internal data for itself, and then for the external data for manipulating external devices that is connected to the I/O module here. And then it can send the internal data, the data for itself, the I/O module itself, and then the external data coming from the outside device, and then the interrupt signals. Yang terakhir, yang ketiga, CPU menerima instruksi, menerima data, menerima interrupt signal. Outputnya dia bisa ngasih address, entah address untuk I/O module atau memori, kemudian kontrol signal kontrol untuk mengaktifasi I/O module atau mengaktifasi bagian-bagian lain dari komputer, dan data. Lastly, for the CPU here, it can receive the instructions, the data, and the interrupt signals. And it can send the address either for addressing the I/O module or the memory, and then control signals for controlling many different parts of the computer, and then lastly the data itself. Ada pertanyaan dulu sampai sini? So far, is there any question? Ada pertanyaan?
Tidak, Pak.
Oke. Oh ya, sebelum saya lupa, ini saya belum menerima informasi untuk counting, baik kelas C ataupun kelas D. Ayo segera, ini sudah pertemuan ketiga, sudah minggu keempat ini sudah. Segera salah satu kontak saya bisa tulis saja di salah satu komentar dari postingan saya di Google Classroom. Nanti akan saya set di Civitas. Satu orang untuk kelas C dan satu orang untuk kelas D. Oke, saya lanjut materinya. Connection itu ujung-ujungnya adalah kita bicara tentang bus. If it about connection in a computer, then normally we will talk about bus. Apakah bus itu? What is a bus? Bus itu adalah saluran komunikasi yang menghubungkan dua device atau lebih. Bus is a communication channel that connects two devices or more. Biasanya bersifat broadcast data, yaitu broadcast ini artinya adalah data menyebar ke seluruh device yang terhubung ke bus. Normally, bus has this broadcasting characteristic. That means the data sent into the bus go to all devices that are connected to the bus. That is broadcast. So, ada beda ya? Apa Pak bedanya? Apa bus ini sama bedanya sama jalur kabel biasa? Kalau kabel biasa, misalkan ini, saya ambil contoh kabel USB di sini. Kabel USB. Kabel USB ini kalau saya tancapkan satu ke komputer, satu ke handphone gitu ya. Satu ke handphone, satu ke komputer, satu ke handphone. Maka jalurnya ini kabel ini hanya akan mengkoneksikan dua device. Satu untuk komputer dan satu untuk handphone. Selesai. Kalau nanti ada device ketiga, misalkan ada apalagi misalkan handphone kedua gitu ya. Maka nggak bisa. Handphone kedua ditancapkan ke jalur yang sama, ini tidak bisa. Jalur ini yang model semacam ini, yang model dedicated begini nih, yang model cuman dua device saja, ini tidak bisa disebut jarang orang ngomong yang semacam ini itu bus. Bus itu biasanya satu jalur, terus ada banyak device yang terkoneksi ke sana. Jadi nanti kalau ada satu device kirim data ke bus, maka semua device yang lain itu sebenarnya bisa ikut membaca, bisa ikut mendengarkan sebenarnya sinyalnya apa yang dikirim. Itu bedanya. Now, I just gave the example of using my USB cable. If I connect one point of my USB cable to a computer and the other points to endpoint to my mobile phone, then it is fixed. The number of devices that can be connected is only 2. Now, if I have another mobile device, I cannot connect to the same USB cable. And normally in this case, we don't call this kind of connection, this kind of cable as bus. Because in a bus, we can connect many devices. And whenever one device send a signal or a data, then every single device connected to the bus can listen to whatever data being sent. Oke. Dalam satu waktu hanya satu device yang dapat mengirimkan data. Tapi device yang membaca data boleh lebih dari satu. At one time, only one device can send the data. But the devices who can read that data can be more than one. Bus sering dikelompokkan menjadi beberapa channel atau jalur digabung dalam satu bus. Misalnya adalah bus data 32. Itu artinya adalah dengan 32 jalur terpisah masing-masing 1 bit. Bentuk fisiknya ini jalur paralel 50 hingga ratusan jalur pada PCB. PCB itu printed circuit board yang ada di komputer, di motherboardnya komputer. Bisa juga berupa pita kabel seperti kabel untuk hard disk. Nah, bedanya kabel USB dengan kabel hard disk, kalau yang kita pernah buka kabel hard disk, masang kabel hard disk, yang bukan yang SATA ya. Ini yang kita yang kabelnya yang kabel paralel. Itu dalam satu kabel kita bisa mengkoneksikan 2 hard disk. Terus ujung satunya lagi dikoneksikan ke komputernya, ke motherboard. Terus konektor strip pada motherboard, misalkan ISA dan PCI slot PCI yang ada di motherboard. Kemudian sekumpulan kabel. Bus is often grouped by many channels or lines grouped into one bus. For example, data bus 32. That is a bus that has two lines, 32 unique lines where each line represent one. And then physically, bus can be in this one. First example is parallel line. It can have 50 lines or even hundreds of lines on the PCB or printed circuit board that is located on the motherboard. And then kabel pita in English I don't remember exactly the term. I think it is band wire. So basically it is wire, but it is like a band. The example for this is a hard disk parallel band wire. It is common this cable in around 2000 computer during 2000 on 2010s, but then after that, starting around 2010, computer manufacturers started to use the serial ATA line. So I don't know whether this is still common or not in nowadays into this computer. And then connector on the motherboard is ISA and PCI. ISA is popular during 1980s, 1990s, but then starting 2000 somethings, computer manufacturer prefer to use PCI and they started to drop the ISA here. And then a group of cables. And then this is ini adalah skema dari interkoneksi bus. Jadi dari CPU dia punya control line, dia akan masuk ke memori dan ke I/O module. Yes. So this is different between data bus, address bus, and control bus. Okay, I'm going to explain it right after this. So I will explain now. So, please wait. Jadi ada yang namanya control line, address line, dan data lines ya. Dari CPU control line-nya masuk ke memori, ke I/O. Kemudian ada address line juga masuk ke memori dan ke I/O. Dan data line masuk ke memori dan masuk ke I/O. Masing-masingnya di sini adalah bus. Now this is the scheme of bus interconnection. So here it shows the CPU and then the memory and then memory modules and then the I/O modules. Here, every single module here, they have their own control lines. So here in this case, the control line connects to every single memory modules, I/O module, and then the CPU. The address line is the same thing and also the same thing for the data lines here. Nah, dari gabungan dari tiga inilah yang disebut sebagai sistem bus. Jalur yang menghubungkan komponen utama dari komputer, yaitu CPU, memori, dan I/O. Combination of these three lines is what we call as system bus. That is a line that connects the major computer components, that is CPU, memories, and the I/O modules. So, now, jadi di sini struktur bus itu dibagi menjadi tiga. Ada bus data lines, bus alamat, address lines, dan bus control atau control lines. So here we can see that the bus structure consists of three major components, that is data lines or data bus, address line or address bus, and then control lines or control bus. Now, I'm going to explain one by one in details right below it. Sekarang saya akan menjelaskan satu persatu dengan lebih detail. Yang pertama adalah bus data. fungsinya dari bus data ini adalah membawa data antar bagian utama komputer. Jadi data utama itu ya di sini, lewatnya lewat bus data. Data di sini dapat berupa data atau instruksi program. The function of the data bus is to carry and to send data between different major computer components. Data here can refer to either the true data, the data itself, like a variables data, or the program instructions itself. So, it can be instruction or it can be the data. Jumlah data yang digunakan disebut lebar bus. Jumlah jalur datanya itu lebar bus. The number of data lines in the bus is often called as bus width or bus bandwidth. Normally bus width. WIDTH, bus width. And then lebar bus data itu menentukan performansi sistem, kecepatan sistem. Semakin lebar bus data, maka performansi sistem meningkat. Contoh, panjang datanya 16 bit, Anda mengirim sebuah data yang panjangnya 16 bit. Kalau lebar bus datanya 8 bit, maka harus dikirim atau diambil 2 kali. Tapi kalau lebar bus datanya 16 bit, cukup diambil 1 kali, maka jelas lebih cepat yang 16 bit. Oke. Bus width sorry, I could not find the appropriate term for this word. The bus width I'm blank. Sorry. The bus width dictates the system performance. So, more wider the bus width and faster the system performance. Why? For example, here, if we have a data as 16 bits, so we want 16 bits data. So we want to send a 16 bits of data. If we send it through a bus that has 8-bit width, then it needs to be sent twice. However, if data bus has 16-bit width, then we only need to send it once. Definitely, this one is faster than this one. Now, macam lebar bus data itu ada macam-macam. Ada yang 8 bit, ada yang 32 bit, ada yang 16, ada yang 32, ada yang 64, ataupun ada yang lain. Tergantung sistem komputernya modelnya gimana. So, there are many different bus width. There are some 8 bits width, and then 16 bits width, and then 32 bits width, and then 64, and there are many others. That depends on the computer manufacturer, depends on the standard being used by the computer. Yang kedua, bus alamat. Tadi kan bus data, sekarang bus alamat. Ini fungsinya mengidentifikasi asal data atau tujuan data. Misal, CPU dapat membaca data yang ada di memori jika alamat data tersebut telah ditentukan. Jadi kalau mau membaca data di memori itu kan, maka ditentukan dulu mau address nomor berapa, mau alamat yang mana dibaca. Karena kalau enggak, CPU ngomong, aku mau baca memori, tapi enggak dikasih address, memorinya bingung. Aku ini punya banyak data, kamu mau baca data yang mana? Itu mirip seperti mau ngirim surat. Mau ngirim surat, kita nulis gitu kan. Kirim surat kepada siapa misalkan, Andi. Tapi kita enggak nulis alamat. Nanti kita kasih ke kantor posnya bingung. Loh, ini Andi yang mana? Namanya Andi itu banyak di Indonesia. Sehingga ini ke siapa suratnya? Nah, makanya kalau kita hendak mengakses data terutama pada memori, maka kita harus kasih data tambahan yaitu data alamat. Now, the second one is address bus. The previous one is the data bus. Now it is the address bus. Its function is to identify the source of the data or the destination of the data. So, for example, if the CPU wants to read a data from the memory, then the CPU needs to specify which address of the memory the CPU wants to read. Otherwise, if the CPU just send, I want to read something, I want to read the data in the memory, but then the CPU doesn't provide any specific address, then the memory is confused. Which one? I have too many data in my cells. If you want to read data, then specify which one, because I have many cells. It is similar to when we want to send a mail through post office. We send, for example, to Andi, but we don't write any address, and then we send it. We send the mail to post office. When post office receive it and read it to Andi, but there is no address, the post office confused. Which Andi? There are many Andi in Indonesia. So which one? Which one this mail should I send to? Because too many Andi. That's why even though the post office has the mail, the data, the post office also needs the address to properly redirect to properly send the mail. Jadi di sini selain ada data tadi suratnya tadi, kantor pos itu juga butuh informasi alamat. Kalau enggak gitu, datanya enggak jelas. Datanya ini mau kemana datanya ini? Kalau hanya ada data tanpa ada alamat. Terus, bus menentukan ukuran maksimum memori yang dapat digunakan. Jadi, misal Pentium 1 itu punya lebar bus alamat 32 bit. Itu Pentium 1. Prosesornya Intel Pentium 1. Sehingga memori maksimum pada Pentium 1 itu ada 2/32, yaitu 4 GB. Itu memori maksimumnya Pentium 1. Jadi, kalau sekarang di komputernya masing-masing punya memori 8 GB, itu jelas lebar bus alamatnya jelas tidak mungkin 32 bit. Jelas harus lebih besar dari 32 bit. Supaya dia bisa mengakses memori 8 GB. Atau kalau di komputernya punya memori 16 GB, 32 GB, maka sekali lagi sama, tidak mungkin lebar busnya dari CPU untuk addressing memori itu cuma 32 bit. Nah, Intel Pentium 4 dapat punya memori maksimum. Nah, ini silahkan dicari sendiri. Now, bus width it's maximum number of memory address that can be used by the CPU. For example, Pentium 1, a CPU from Intel, first published in I think 1995, has bus width of 32 bits. That means the maximum memory address that can be accessed by Pentium 1 is 2 to the power of 32. That is 4 gigabytes. That is the maximum. So if you have a computer that has 8 gigabytes of memory or 16 gigabytes of memory, that means your computer must have more than 32 bits as its bus width. So Again, if you have 16 gigabytes of memory, definitely your computer has more than 32 bits of bus width. Lebar bus alamat digunakan pula untuk pengalamatan port I/O. Jadi sama mirip dengan pengalamatan memori, maka lebar bus itu juga digunakan untuk pengalamatan port I/O. Similarly, for addressing I/O ports, bus address bus width is also being used for addressing the I/O ports, similar to the memory addressing. Yang ketiga, yang terakhir, bus control. Ini untuk mengatur pengaksesan dan penggunaan jalur data dan alamat. Jadi controlling terhadap jalur data dan jalur alamat. Contohnya ini adalah untuk memberikan timing eksekusi program, mengatur timing. Contohnya lagi di sini, berikan sinyal kontrol yang bisa diberikan. Contohnya adalah ini, memory read. Jadi kalau bus kontrolnya ngasih memory read, maka di memori itu dilempar ke bus data. Kalau memory write, itu data di bus data dimasukkan ke memori. Ini kode yang dikirim ke dalam bus kontrol. I/O read dari data ke bus data, dari data dari port I/O ke bus data. I/O write dari bus data ke port I/O. Transfer ACK itu acknowledge, itu ngomong bahwa data sudah diterima atau ditaruh dari ke bus. Bus request, permintaan untuk menggunakan bus. Bus grant, status bus boleh digunakan. Interrupt request, permintaan interrupt. Interrupt ACK, acknowledge, itu sinyal yang menunjukkan bahwa interrupt telah diterima. Clock signal, itu mensinkronisasi antar operasi. Kemudian reset, itu dia meminta menginisialisasi semua modul yang terkoneksi ke bus. Now, third one, control bus. Its function is to controlling access or use of data bus and address bus. So basically, the control bus here is for controlling those two prior buses. So normally it is used for timing between different processes, timing between different steps in the computer, especially for program execution. So, for example, memory read is one example, one signal that is being sent into the control bus. In this case, if the control bus send this signal, memory read, then that means data from the memory needs to be written to the data bus. So basically, whatever being addressed in the memory, being accessed in the memory, needs to be read and then put into the data bus when the control bus has this instruction. And then next, memory write. This one, if the bus control has this signal, it means that the data in the data bus needs to be written into the memory. Similarly, for I/O read, data in the I/O port needs to be put into data bus. I/O write, data in the data bus needs to be written into the I/O port. Transfer ACK is acknowledgement. It means it shows that the data has been successfully sent or successfully put to bus or from bus or to bus. Whenever we want to send data from to the bus or read the data from the bus, then after that operation, sometimes we need to issue this transfer acknowledge that transfer has happened successfully. And then bus request. request to use the bus. Bus grant a status showing that the bus can be used by the requesting device. And then interrupt request, request for interrupt. Interrupt ACK, interrupt acknowledge, showing that the interrupt is acknowledged, then you can do the interruption. Clock signals. This one is synchronize operation between operations. And then reset. Reset here to initialize all the module connected to the bus. So, is that clear enough? Before I'm going to the next topic. Apakah cukup jelas? Ada pertanyaan kah? Apakah cukup jelas? Ada pertanyaan kah?
Cukup, Pak.
Oke. Lanjut. Continue. Bus hierarchy. Hierarki bus di sini dibagi menjadi dua, single bus dan multiple bus. Saya jelaskan dulu. Multiple bus yang tradisional. Akses ke memory tidak selalu melibatkan prosesor. Di sini bisa dilihat prosesor ada local bus ke case-nya dia di dalam ini case dan prosesornya ada di dalam keping prosesornya sendiri sama ada local I/O controller. Kemudian di sini ada sistem bus dari antara case yang terkoneksi ke main memory. Nah, baru nanti dari sini dari sistem bus dia punya expansion bus interface ke expansion bus. Expansion bus inilah yang mengkoneksikan ke perangkat-perangkat yang lebih lambat. Contohnya jaringan network, komputer network, ada SCSI. Ini SCSI ini biasanya untuk hard disk. Kemudian ada modem, terus ada serial connection, misalkan untuk USB, keyboard, terus mouse itu di sini. Jadi akses ke main memory ke sini, ke memory itu tidak selalu menggunakan prosesor karena dari sini bisa langsung ke main memory. Lewatnya dari sini saja. Bisa timbul masalah jika perbedaan kecepatan antara device cukup besar. This one is the multiple bus. That means it has at least two different bus here. The first one is the system bus. It connects the main memory to the CPU. This one is the CPU block. Between processor and case, it has the local bus. It is inside the processor itself. For example, if you have Intel Core i5, then the processor and the case is located inside that Intel Core 5 chip, including the local I/O controller. It has its own local bus inside the chip. But then, if the CPU wants to communicate with the main memory, then it will go through to system bus here. And then, second one is the expansion bus. This one connects to the slower devices, for example, network computer network, and then SCSI. This one is for hard disk, and then modem, and then serial devices like keyboard or mouse. And between the system bus and expansion bus, they are connected by the expansion bus interface. So this is why it is called multiple bus, because there are two buses. Access to main memory not always involve processor. So sometimes from network it can send the data through the expansion bus, and then expansion bus interface system bus, and then being written into the main memory without involvement of the CPU. Issues can arise if the speed difference between devices are big. So if for example the serial device here is really slow and it uses the expansion bus interface system bus to the memory, because this one is slow, and it's every single every other devices to use the same bus to do their own work. Jadi kalau misalkan ini ada serial device mouse itu ya, dia lagi connect, dia jalannya ke sini, ke main memory atau ke prosesor, dia menggunakan semua busnya di sini. Jadi jalurnya dipakai, expansion bus dipakai sama dia sendiri, expansion bus interface dipakai sama mouse sendiri, sistem bus juga dipakai dia sendiri. Maka device-device yang lain nggak bisa pakai sistem bus, nggak bisa pakai expansion bus sama sekali sampai selesai. Nah itu problem itu. Nah, jalan salah satu caranya adalah dengan ini, dengan multiple bus untuk yang high performance, yaitu device berkecepatan rendah dipisah dengan device berkecepatan tinggi. Ini high speed device digabung di sini, ada system bus, ada high speed bus, ada expansion bus. Low speed device ditaruh di sini, low speed device. Nah, kalau nanti ada mouse tadi yang serial di sini hendak mengakses gitu ya, maka dia di sini bisa jadi nanti di sini bagian sininya, di bagian sini atau di bagian sini ada case atau bridge-nya, ditahan dulu datanya ditahan dulu, case bridge-nya atau di sini, atau data yang lain ketika dia lagi kirim data yang lain ini masuk ke cache-nya dulu, baru kalau lancar, kalau tidak ada lagi yang menggunakan, baru dia dilewatkan. So this is one solution for the previous problem where the slow device hogging the bus. Here a slow device is put into different bus than the high speed device. Here high speed device has this one, the system bus and high speed bus. High speed bus here has this LAN, local area network, and then video, and then graphic card, and then 1394. I think this one is IEEE 1394 for I think FireWire, the name. Nowadays I think it is not popular anymore. And then SCSI, the hard disk. And then mouse and then modem, the slow device has their own expansion bus. So when they send the data, it might be case here before it can use the high speed bus. Next, the bus design element. It is divided into several types. The type, either dedicated or multiplex. Arbitration mode, either centralized or distributed. This one is not distributor, but distributed. Timing, either synchronous or asynchronous. Bus width, address or data. And then data transfer type, either it is read, write, or read, modify, write, read after write, or block. So, di sini elemen bus design itu jadi kalau kita hendak mendesain bus itu dibagi menjadi banyak kategori. Kalau dari sisi sudut pandang tipe, itu bus itu ada yang namanya dedicated, ada yang namanya multiplex. Berdasarkan metode arbitrasi, ada yang namanya centralized, ada yang namanya distributed. Ini distributed. Dari segi timing, itu ada yang namanya synchronous, ada lagi yang namanya asynchronous. Dari segi lebar bus, ada address, ada data. Terus dari segi tipe transfer data, ada read, write, read, modify, write, read after write, dan block. Saya jelaskan ini masing-masingnya setelah ini. Ini yang pertama ya, tipe yang tipe bus. Nih, tipe bus type. Dibagi dua, ada dedicated sama multiplex. Kalau dedicated, jalur dan data alamat, jalur data dan jalur alamat itu terpisah. Dan penggunaannya tetap tidak berubah. Sekali dia jalur data, ya selamanya jadi jalur data. Sekali jalur address, selamanya dia jalur address. Ini adalah tipe bus yang banyak digunakan. Yang multiplex itu itu jalur bus digunakan untuk mengirimkan alamat dan data secara bergantian. Jadi datanya jalurnya cuma satu, dipakai untuk ngirim data sekaligus dipakai ngirim alamat. Digunakan control line. Control line ya ada controllingnya. Jadi untuk menentukan sekarang lagi ngirim data atau ngirim address ini. Inilah address valid atau data valid. Kelebihannya dia jumlah jalurnya lebih sedikit, nggak perlu 2 jalur alamat sendiri, data sendiri. Hemat tempat dan hemat biaya. Kerugian penanganannya lebih kompleks karena untuk kirim data itu harus kirim dulu. Kirim informasi, oh saya mau kirim data. Kalau kirim alamat, oh saya mau kirim alamat, lebih kompleks. Dan performansinya berkurang, lebih lambat. Karena alamat dan data itu harus dikirimnya bergantian, tidak bisa paralel. So, this one is bus type here. Bus type. It is dedicated or multiplex here. Dedicated or multiplex. For the dedicated, bus data bus and address bus are separated. So, it has its own data bus and it has its own address bus. And they are fixed. They are never changed. If a database is already given in the system, already built in the system, then it will be used as a database forever. The computer will never use database for sending address data. This one is the most common type. This is the common type dedicated. However, there are some computer system use this one, multiplex. This bus is used to send address data, the address and the data in turn. Bergantian is in turn. So I will send the data first, and then after that I will send the address using the same bus. So to control this, we use the control line. So basically we use the signal. If signal is address valid, it means we want to send address. If the control line has this data valid signal, then we want to send the data. Advantage for this one, the number of bus is fewer. That means we can use only a small patch on the motherboard. So we only use a small area for building this bus. In other ways, we don't have to spend much cost because we only build one, not 2 different dedicated buses. Then the disadvantage is that mechanism is more complex because whenever I want to send a data and address, I need to say I want to send the data first and then send the data. After that, I need to say again I want to send the address now, and then I can send the address after that. That means the mechanism is more complex. And then another drawback is that the speed is slower because the address and the data needs to be sent in turn. We cannot send both of them at the same time, or in other words, we cannot send them in parallel. Okay. And then physical dedication. Physical dedication. Physical dedication ini masuk yang lanjutannya yang tadi ya. Jadi ini kan ada dedicated, ada multiplex. Nah, ini masih lanjutan. Ada lagi yang ketiga jenisnya namanya physical dedication. Ini termasuk tipe bus yang multiplex, Jalur tertentu diperuntukkan untuk beberapa modul tertentu. Misal, bus I/O hanya untuk menghubungkan semua modul I/O. Modul I/O tidak terhubung langsung ke bus sistem. Ini salah ini harusnya nih. Pak Yoga harusnya informasinya salah ini. Ini harusnya ini bukan termasuk tipe bus yang multiplex, ini termasuk tipe bus yang dedicated. Jadi untuk I/O dia punya bus I/O sendiri, jadi tidak ada kaitannya dengan sistem. Nanti untuk bus sistem ada sendiri. Kelebihan throughputnya meningkat, kecepatannya meningkat karena bus contention berkurang. Bus contention itu rebutan untuk nulis atau mengakses bus. Kekurangannya adalah ukurannya bertambah, ujung-ujungnya biayanya bertambah. Now, a variation of the bus type is the physical dedication. This is in the same category as the dedicated. This one is wrong. This one is wrong. This one is not multiplex. This one is the dedicated one. What is this actually? Now, in this physical dedication, we build a specific bus for specific modules. So, for example, we create I/O bus to connect only the I/O modules. That means module I/O modules can communicate with each other without involvement of the system bus. Advantage, throughput is increased. I mean, in another word, the speed is better. The speed is faster because the bus contention is lower. What is bus contention here? Bus contention is the condition that describes that the devices are competing to use the bus either for sending data or reading the data. That's bus contention. Because this kind of condition, it slows down the overall performance. Because the I/O module, one device needs to ask first. Because at the same time another device asks, then there might be clash. So they need to wait. If there is no other device asking the same request at the same time, then the first device request can be service can be directly processed immediately. But then because there is a competing request, then it slows down the overall process. And then the downside is that the size, because we need to build different buses, then the size increase, and then it also cause the increase in the cost. Next, bus arbitration. Arbitrasi bus. Arbitrasi bus itu kalau bahasa Indonesianya itu adalah pengaturan bus. Itu kurang lebihnya pengaturan bus. Karena arbitrasi di sini itu bahasa Indonesianya yang pas itu sebenarnya kurang tidak ada sebenarnya. Nah, mengapa penggunaan bus perlu diatur? Karena dalam satu saat hanya boleh ada satu modul yang menggunakan bus. Sementara dimungkinkan lebih dari satu modul itu ingin menggunakan bus di saat bersamaan. Misalkan CPU dan DMA controller. Jenis bus arbitration itu ada dua, centralized atau terpusat, distribute atau tersebar. Bus arbitration doesn't have an appropriate Indonesian word. We'll call it in Indonesian word as pengaturan, but pengaturan is not the correct word. It doesn't show the details of arbitration word entails. Now, why we need bus arbitration? Because at the same time, only one module can use the bus. However, it is possible that more than one module wants to use the bus at the same time. For example, the CPU and the DMA controller. So there are two types of bus arbitration here. The first one is centralized and the second one is distributed. Yang pertama yang centralized itu ada satu satu modul atau hardware tertentu yang bertugas mengatur penggunaan bus dan disebut sebagai bus controller atau bus arbiter. Secara realisasi, itu dapat berupa modul terpisah atau dia jadi bagian dari CPU. Sementara kalau distributed arbitration itu tidak ada controller tunggal. Jadi setiap modul dapat mengakses bus berdasarkan control logic. Jadi ada logical proses, ada logical steps pada setiap modul yang harus diikuti. Here, for centralized arbitration, there exists a specific module or a specific hardware which functions to control the use of the bus. This module or this hardware is called bus controller or bus arbiter. In the real world, this bus controller can be a different module or it can be a part of the CPU. And then next, the distributed arbitration, there is no single controller. And then how will devices share the bus? Those devices access the bus based on control logic. So there is some kind of procedures built in the modules in order for them to use the bus in shared manner. Now, timing. Sekarang timing. Timing itu pengaturan pewaktuan. Ini pengaturan event pada bus yang menggunakan clock. Clock itu modelnya kalau digital, jadi dalam komputer itu ada namanya signal clock, signal timing. Ini modelnya begini. Sini naik ke atas, turun lagi, naik ke atas, turun lagi, naik ke atas, turun lagi, kayak ke atas. Ini yang umum kalau kita beli komputer CPU gitu ya, beli prosesor itu, mau beli prosesor berapa gigahertz. Nah, gigahertz itu mengacu pada clock ini. Jadi, kalau 1 gigahertz itu artinya dalam 1 detik, dia clocknya ini naik turun ini, dalam bentuk satu gelombang di sini ini, sebanyak 1 giga kali, atau 1 giga itu berapa? 1 giga itu 1 mega, 1 juta, 1 giga berarti 1 miliar kali. Dalam 1 detik terjadi clock 1 miliar. Naik turunnya 1 miliar. Ya, satu gelombangnya 1 miliar. Nah, timing. This one is one of the mechanism to control events happening in the bus. It uses the clock mechanism. So, in digital computer, we use what is called as a digital clock system. So, if you go and buy a CPU, Intel Core i5, usually it has this important specification, that is what is the clock time. Or you can see on the box of the CPU, it will be written as, for example, 2 gigahertz or 2.2 gigahertz. That means if it is 2 gigahertz, then in 1 second it creates this kind of clock going up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, digital 0 and digital 1. So it will create for 2 gigahertz, it will create 2 billion signals for every second. That is for 2 gigahertz. If it is 3 gigahertz, then it will create 3 billion signals, clock signals in 1 second. Jadi ini modelnya begini, yang bawah ini binary 0, yang atas ini binary 1. Angka biner 0, angka biner 1. Yang naik ke atas ini disebut leading edge, yang turun ke bawah ini disebut trailing edge. Yang simbol semacam ini time gap namanya. Time gap itu menunjukkan ada gap, ini bisa banyak sekali bisa. Dan pembacaannya dari kiri ke kanan. Nih, time. Jadi semakin ke kanan nih semakin banyak waktunya. So here, signal as a function of time here, it shows the low line as binary 0 and the top line is binary 1. This one, the signal from binary 0 to binary 1 is called leading edge, and from binary 1 to binary 0 is trailing edge. And then the symbol is for time gap. Basically, it shows that there is a gap there. It can use many clocks happening in here, and it is fine because it is symbolized by time gap. And we read it from left to right. So this one happened prior to this one, and this one happened after this one. So we read it from left to right. So ini kalau yang begini all lines at 0. Ini contohnya. Tapi kalau dia misah begini, itu each line itu bisa 0 atau bisa 1. Terserah anunya. Terserah kondisi programnya nanti. Terus modelnya begini. Jadi kalau 1 ada komen di sini, dia turun. Maka respon yang terjadi itu harus setelah satu clock nih, setelah satu turun gini kan, sampai sini baru respon akan terjadi setelah itu. Tidak mungkin komen langsung ada respon, itu tidak mungkin, karena dalam sistem komputer itu semuanya berbasis clock. Jadi setelah satu terjadi, tadi bacanya tadi kan, satu terjadi, maka baru bisa terjadi yang berikutnya. Nah ini komennya terjadi duluan, baru responnya terjadi berikutnya. Cause and effect dependencies. Ini komennya kalau terjadi di sini, maka efeknya nanti satu clock berikutnya. Now this is another explanation of the timing diagram here. Here, if it is a flat line here, it symbolizes that all lines at 0. But then if it has branches here, up and down here, that means in this part the data can be 0 or can be 1 depending on the process itself. But it shows that the data is either 1 or either 0. We cannot know from the diagram the specific condition for this kind of operation. What is the actual values for this part? That depends on the procedure, that depends on the specific instruction, that depends on the program itself, or depends on the user input. And then this is the cause and effect dependencies. So whenever we have command here, it needs to wait at least until after finish the command clock finish, then it can only give the response after that. So this one is command, cannot produce the response right at the same time as the command. So command and then respond. This one is the command. If the command is happening over here, then the response is over here. Kemudian timing secara tersinkron, yaitu terjadinya event pada bus berdasarkan pada clock. Jadi semuanya ngikuti clock. Satu siklus bus terdiri dari sepasang bit 1 atau 0. Satu siklus, satu gelombang. Semua device dapat membaca clock line. Sinkronisasinya biasanya pada ujung awal clock. Biasanya satu event untuk satu siklus. Nah, now this one is synchronized timing. Later I will explain the asynchronous. This one is for asynchronous timing. In this kind of timing, then the event on the bus all events on the bus happen based on the clock mechanism. It cannot go beyond the clock mechanism. One cycle of the bus consists of a pair of bit 1 and bit 0. So one wave consists of this one, 1 and then 0. 1 and then 0. This one is considered as one wave, one cycle. All devices can read the clock line. Clock line is this one. This one is clock line. It is coming from the clock device in the computer. Clock device function is only to create this clock line. Sinkronisasi biasanya synchronization usually happen at the beginning of the clock. So if the clock is something like this, then the synchronization happen during this leading edge. Normally one event is for one cycle. So this one for example for read and write, contoh untuk timing diagram untuk proses pembacaan dan penulisan. Jadi ini clocknya di sini. Ini time 1, ini cycle 1, ini naik, turun, mau naik lagi. Setelah itu ini cycle 2, naik, turun, naik lagi. Ini cycle 3, naik, turun, naik lagi. Ini deretan bit 1 atau bit 0 yang sini. So this is example for reading and writing processes. So for the first line, the first row here, the clock, it is the clock line. In this case, it starts from leading edge, increasing, and then flat, decreasing, flat, started to increase again. This part is one cycle, that is T1, timing 1. And then for T2, it is the same, increasing, flat, decreasing, flat, almost increasing. This one is time 2. And the same thing for time 3, T3 here. This one is showing procession of bit 1 and bit 0. And then I think, oh no, it is not explained here. Ini yang pertama, status line. Dikasih satu sinyal dulu, isi status line-nya ini, status line-nya dikasih satu sinyal bahwa CPU mau menggunakan bus. Now, the first step for reading or writing, the status lines needs to be put with status signals because it is using this one, the branching. The status signal can be anything depending on the computer manufacturer in this case. Basically, the status signal is to notify the CPU wants to use the bus. And then, lalu yang langkah kedua, address line here, step 2 here, address on address line, kita berikan stable addressnya yang tidak diakses yang mana. Ini basically CPU ngomong bahwa saya naruh alamat di memori di sini, address line. Terus juga di address enablekan, setelah ditaruh addressnya di enable di sini. Now, the step 2, we put the address information into address line. So basically here the CPU puts the memory address into the address line. Step 3, address enable. We enable address. Basically stating that CPU states that the address is ready to be read in the address line. Ini intinya yang address enable di sini, CPU-nya ngomong, hey, alamatnya sudah saya taruh di address line loh ya. Silahkan baca dari sana. Ini maksudnya yang poin ketiga. Kemudian untuk yang read cycle, maka prosesnya terjadi di sini. Dia naik begini kan, naik di sini. Timing satunya ini, dia baru di read di sini. Poin keempat, CPU command read. Terus proses data ini, data valid in, memorinya taruh data. Jadi CPU-nya kasih command read, memorinya menaruh data di data lines. Here, if we go to the reading cycle, it start with here, 4 here. CPU issues the read command there, starting in the timing 2. And then at timing 3, memory put the data, the valid data into the data lines. That is the reading cycle. Untuk yang writing cycle, balik 6 dulu di sini. Data lines-nya dikasih dulu data, CPU taruh data di data line. Terus langkah ketujuhnya di sini, CPU ngasih memori command writing, dan memorinya mengambil datanya dari bus, dituliskan ke dalam address di memorinya dia. If it is writing cycle, then it is kind of flip. So in here, the CPU first need to put the data into the data lines first. After that, the CPU set write command here in the write line, and then the memory will know that okay, the data is ready in the data lines. I have the address, and it has the CPU has issued the writing command. Then I will take the data in the data lines in the data bus, and then write them into my memory address. This is how to read the synchronous timing diagram. Basically, it is based on the clock progression. Ini caranya membaca timing diagram untuk yang synchronous. Jadi semuanya tergantung dari proses clocknya di sini, timing dari clocknya di sini. Asynchronous timing, ini yang kedua. This is the second method, asynchronous timing. Event berikutnya terjadi berdasarkan event sebelumnya dan tidak berdasarkan clock. One event happens based on the previous event and not based on the clock. So, contoh, kalau saya ngeklik satu tombol di mouse, maka event berikutnya misalkan ada proses warnanya tombolnya berubah dari hijau menjadi merah misalkan. Itu event yang satu ngikuti event yang berikutnya. Dia tidak tergantung pada clock. Karena pengeklikan tombol mouse itu kan tergantung user, tidak tergantung pada clock. Nah, here asynchronous timing, I just gave an example of a user clicking the mouse button. When the user click the mouse button, there has been some changes on the screen, which some part previously has a green color, change into red color. In this case, one event, the changing of the color from red to green, happened because of the clicking of mouse button, not because of any synchronization with a clock. Oke. Ini sinkronous versus asinkronous. Kalau yang sinkronous, kelebihannya implementasinya mudah, karena semuanya berbasis clock. Pengujiannya juga mudah. Kalau tidak sesuai dengan clock, berarti sudah salah. Tapi kurang fleksibel kelemahannya, karena clock rate-nya tetap. Device dengan clock rate lebih tinggi tidak meningkatkan performansi sistem kalau ada device dengan clock rate yang rendah. Kalau dia komunikasinya dengan device yang clock rate-nya rendah. So, this one, synchronous versus asynchronous. For synchronous, implementation is easier because everything depends on the clock. And then the testing is easier because if one device does not follow the clock, then it is faulty. It needs to be replaced. That's it. But then, the downside is it is not flexible because the fixed clock rate. That means devices that has higher clock rate cannot increase system performance if the device is communicating with slow clock rate devices. So it will be still slow. And then for asynchronous, kelebihannya adalah lebih fleksibel. Device model lama dengan kecepatan rendah itu dapat digunakan bersama-sama dengan device berkecepatan lebih tinggi. For asynchronous, the advantage is that it is more flexible. the old model devices with slow speed can be used with high speed devices. This one, asynchronous timing for reading diagram. Asynchronous timing untuk pembacaan, proses pembacaan. Ini status line nomor 1, CPU taruh sinyal status di jalur satu sinyal. Address line, CPU taruh alamat di bus. Nih, bus address. Terus read, CPU kirim perintah baca. Kirim perintah baca di sini. Dari sini yang keempat, memori decode alamat. Memori decode alamat ini tidak tergantung, tidak nunggu clock. Jadi begitu kirim perintah baca, ya sudah. Si memorinya yang harus deteksi sendiri. Oh, ada perintah baca. Karena ada perintah baca, aku harus mendekode ini address line. Setelah itu, memori taruh data di bus. Memori taruh data di bus. Data line, valid data, taruh. Dia ngambil memori berdasarkan yang di address ini yang dipesan oleh si CPU, ditaruh ke bus. Terus setelah itu, kalau sudah ditaruh, memori kirim sinyal ACK. ACK itu ngomong, aku sudah ngirim loh. Nah, karena ada sinyal ACK ini asinkronus, ada event terjadinya sinyal ACK, maka CPU menghapus read signal. Read signalnya dihapus di sini. Ini dihapus. Terus CPU menghapus datanya ini dihapus, sama ACK-nya dihapus. Jadi supaya siap nanti kalau ada pembacaan yang berikutnya. Terus CPU hapus alamat. Siap lagi untuk melakukan yang berikutnya. Nah, this is an example for asynchronous timing or reading. So in this case, the CPU wants to read a memory address, a memory location. So in this case, CPU puts signal status in the bus. This one in the status lines, it puts status signal. And then in the address line 2, the CPU puts the address, the memory address that it wants to read. And then 3, the CPU sends the read signal to the control line. And then because there is this event, the signal reading signal in the control line, then the memory will know, okay, the CPU wants to read my data. It starts by decoding the address. Decoding which part of my cells wants to be read. And then after that, the memory will put the data from that address into the data lines, the valid data here. After that, the memory will send the acknowledge signal. So that because this one, the event here, the event acknowledge signal happening, CPU will know, okay, the memory has sent the data into the memory bus. Then CPU will delete the read signal, this one. And then the CPU will read data and then delete the data and acknowledge signal. The data, this one, the valid data and then the acknowledge after the data being read. And then the CPU will delete the address information in the bus. And then it will be ready for every single buses involved here, will be ready to be used for another reading processes. Basically, there is no clock to synchronize everything. It will detect the event there. Is there any question so far? Ada pertanyaan kah? Ada pertanyaan kah?
Tidak, Pak.
Oke, lanjut. Ini untuk yang write, ini yang tadi kan untuk read, ini untuk yang write. Jadi bersamaan ditaruh status line-nya, dia mau writing, taruh alamat, taruh data. Terus baru dikasih sinyal di sini, taruh data, taruh alamat, taruh status. Satu nomor 4, Memori tahu satu copy data dari bus, terus memori ngirim sinyal ACK bahwa writing-nya dia selesai. Setelah itu ini acknowledge, kirim sinyal acknowledge. Dari sinyal acknowledge ini CPU tahu, oke, sudah tertulis. CPU menghapus writing signalnya sama si memori menghapus ACK. Here is another example for when the CPU wants to write a particular memory address. So it happens at the same time, 1, 2, and 3 here. On the status line, CPU puts the status signal that it wants to write something on the memory. And then on the address line, it puts the address information. And then on the data lines, it puts the valid data there. And then the memory, noticing that there is something in the status signal, that is the CPU wants to write something into the memory, then the memory will copy the data from the bus into a particular address in the memory cell. After that, memory, 5, the memory send ACK signal, acknowledge signal. Acknowledge signal. And then CPU will detect this. Oh, there is an acknowledge signal from the memory. That means the writing process is done. Then 6 here, the CPU delete the write signal. And 7, the memory deletes the ACK signal. And that's it. Again, there is no synchronization with the clock line. Berikutnya lebar bus atau bus width. Adalah banyak jalur yang digunakan, ini sempat saya singgung sebelumnya di atas. Lebar bus berpengaruh terhadap performansi. Semakin lebar bus data yang digunakan, maka makin banyak jumlah bit data yang dapat dilewatkan dalam satu saat. Jika CPU clock sama, maka komputer dengan bus data 32 bit lebih cepat daripada komputer dengan bus data 16 bit. Secara kapasitas, makin lebar bus alamat yang digunakan, makin besar memori yang dapat digunakan. Ini sudah saya singgung di sebelumnya. Here, bus width, I have talked this previously. I just repeat this. Bus width is the number of lines in the bus. The bus width has an effect to the performance of the system. The more bus width, and the more the bits can be sent in one time. So for example, if CPU clock is the same, CPU clocks are the same, and the computer which has 32 bits data will send the data faster than a computer that has 16-bit data bus. And then the second effect is that in the capacity, wider the bus width and bigger the memory address that can be used. Berikutnya ini pengenalan tentang PCI bus. PCI bus ini teknologi tahun 90-an, sekitar 90-an mulai dikenalkan. Sebelumnya ISA itu lebih lama, ISA itu 70-an, 80-an, PCI bus. Sekarang kalau nggak salah masih ada PCI bus, tapi namanya sudah ganti dengan PCI Express. Nggak tahu yang lebih baru lagi apa. Terakhir yang saya tahu PCI bus itu umumnya sekarang yang ada itu adalah PCI Express. Jadi PCI tetapi variannya PCI Express. PCI singkatan dari Peripheral Component Interconnection. Now, we are talking about PCI bus. This one is introduction for a specific technology named PCI, Peripheral Component Interconnection. I think this one was being introduced in 1990s. Previously, computers used ISA bus introduced in 1970s or 1980s. Nowadays, PCI bus is still being used, but not. I think the original one is not that common anymore, because I think nowadays it is more common to encounter the PCI Express type. So it is still PCI, but it is a variant of the original PCI bus. Yes, this one. Released by Intel in 1990s pada Pentium based computer. Released by Intel in 1990s in the Pentium based processor. Advantage, kelebihan, bandwidth-nya tinggi saat itu dibanding dengan ISA. Higher bandwidth compared to the previous bus, which is ISA. Plus dengan prosesor independen, jadi dia bisa bekerja tanpa keterlibatan prosesor 100%. PC bus can work independently from the processor, so that means it doesn't need to involve the processor 100 times during its operation. And then meningkatkan performance system, definitely kalau dia bisa bekerja sendiri maka performanya bisa mempercepat sistem. Because it doesn't need to involve the processor, then the performance is faster. Dapat memenuhi kebutuhan I/O secara ekonomis. Ini saya kurang jelas, tapi yang jelas PCI bus itu ukurannya lebih pendek daripada ISA. Jadi dia lebih pendek terus tapi lebih cepat. Jadi secara ekonominya lebih masuk lah. Karena tidak perlu panjang-panjang bikin modul device I/O-nya, juga motherboard-nya juga tidak perlu panjang-panjang, tidak perlu lebar. I/O needs can be supplied economically. I think in this case it is because the PCI is shorter than ISA slot. That means the module can be made smaller, and then also the area being used on the motherboard is smaller too. That means it can reduce the cost. Tetap kompatibel meskipun vendor berbeda. Jadi PCI itu kelebihannya dibanding ISA. Kadang ISA itu masih harus ngeset port, tapi kalau PCI itu sudah otomatis. Jadi vendor-vendor berbeda pun itu tidak masalah, dia sudah saling bisa koneksi. Even though the vendor is different, vendor for the modules are different connected to the PCI bus, they can still be compatible, because if I remember correctly, for the ISA bus, sometimes we still need to set the port number, but for the PCI we don't have to set anything. It can regulate itself. Jadi dari 32 atau 64 bit, jadi ada pilihannya PCI bus itu. PCI bus can use either 32 or 64 bit. Transfer rate dengan 64 bit dan 66 MHz adalah 528 MB per second, yaitu 66 MB 66 MHz dikali 64 dibagi 8. Kenapa dibagi 8? Karena di sini bit, di sini bytes. Karena 1 byte itu 8 bit, makanya dibagi 8. Nih, ukurannya dari 528 MB per second atau 4,224 gigabit per second. For transfer rate for the 64 bit width and 66 MHz is 528 megabytes per second. That is 66 megahertz, 66 mega times 64 bit divided by 8. Why 8? Because this one is in bytes and this one is in bit. 1 byte is 8 bit, or it is 4.224 gigabit per second. Gigabit. This one byte, this one bit. This one times 8 is this one. So, in the PCI bus specification, it has 49 line, dedicated line, and 51 additional or optional line. Jadi ada jalur wajibnya, ada jalur tambahan. Menggunakan model multiplex, synchronous timing, dan centralized arbitration. It uses the multiplex type and then synchronous timing and centralized arbitration. Sinkronisasi terjadi saat perubahan clock dari high ke low, jadi trailing edge. Synchronize happen when the clock changes from high to low, that is trailing edge. not leading edge. This is the baseline yang wajib, the requirement. There is pin system, pin alamat dan data, pin interface control, pin arbitration, dan pin error reporting. Ini yang opsional, ada pin interrupt, pin case support, JTAG boundary scan. Ini PCI komen-komennya untuk mengatur transaksi antara inisiator, master, dan target. PCI commands is for controlling transaction between the master, the initiator, and the target. Menentukan jenis transaksi yang akan dilakukan, misal IO, read, atau write. This specifies the type of transaction that is going to be executed. For example, here IO read or IO write. Giving signal that one event has been finished, has been done, acknowledged. And then giving signal that one condition, for example, like ready to accept data, or the data has been put to the bus to the other module. Ini saya lompati. Ini contohnya read timing diagram, reading. Keterangannya ada di sini. Saya lompati saja. Ini sekedar apa? Sekedar contoh bahwa untuk CPU spesifikasinya, untuk PCI spesifikasinya proses penulisannya seperti ini. Ini akan mirip dengan yang tadi yang di atas. Yang penting mahasiswa adalah paham yang prosesnya yang tadi yang di atas tadi. I will skip this part, PCI read timing diagram. This one is only showing how the PCI read process. So this one is specific for PCI. We'll skip this. The important thing is that the students can understand the previous timing diagram here. This one is more general. This one is more specific. So I will not ask this in the exam. Saya tidak akan menanyakan proses tentang ini di exam, karena ini sangat spesifik di PCI. Bisa jadi nanti di tahun-tahun ke depan, ketika standar PCI sudah tidak digunakan lagi, yang standar yang semacam ini sudah tidak lagi digunakan. In the future, it might be that if the PCI is never used anymore, then this one is obsolete. So that's why I don't explain. I just need you to know that there is this kind of specification available for you to, if you want to read more. Saya hanya naruh ini supaya mahasiswa tahu bahwa ya ada spesifikasi seperti ini. Jadi kalau mahasiswa mau memperdalam lebih lanjut, silakan, ada spesifikasinya. Okay, that's it. Is there any question? Is there any question?
Tidak.
Oke. Lagi yang saya minta tadi, saya minta ada komting untuk kelas C dan kelas D. Tolong dikasih apa namanya? Komentar di salah satu postingan saya terkait komtingnya siapa untuk kelas C dan komtingnya siapa untuk kelas D. Jangan lupa absen. Ada pertanyaan kah? Tidak ada? Kalau tidak ada, saya akhiri sekian. Mahasiswa bisa log off.